something I've noticed about people in general is that they'll blame anybody but themselves. And when I say anybody, I don't mean anybody. They'll blame this person or that person, particularly for everything. But they won't blame themselves, or they won't at least look at themselves. When I say look at themselves, I mean like they won't look at what makes them think to blame that person or this person. Instead of being more self-critical to themselves, instead of just basically just don't do that. Don't take it out on other people. And if you are going to, at least have a good reason. But oftentimes these sorts of people, they really don't have a good reason. Now, I've heard people blame me for things. I've heard people quietly not blame me for things, but then behind my back blame me for things. And I don't really mean anything in particular, but for example, I had some friends in high school. I think I distanced myself once from them. I didn't hang out with them once. And from that moment on, they sort of just decided to leave me behind and not talk to me. That's what I noticed anyway. There's a lot of gaslighting that goes around with that sort of thing, where people say, oh yeah, I didn't really do that. But they did. And I don't know, I'm at a point in my life where I actually don't care anymore whether or not they did. Because objectively, they did leave me behind. I lived in a house that fell apart for almost a year, I guess. Maybe not quite a year, but almost a year. And before that, I was alone, suffering in other ways. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I've noticed that in my life, a lot of people blame me for things that I have no control over. And a lot of it just stems from having the face shape that I have. The N-word gets thrown around. Black people think it's just for them or whatever. I actually do have a percentage of black, like a black hair, like African American, or rather African Italian ancestry in my bloodstream. But that's kind of besides the point. The N-word gets thrown around sometimes. Behind my back, I've noticed. Don't ask me how I know, okay? I'm not stupid. And I noticed that these people only blame people who are the N-word to them. I'm not just talking about my friends from high school. I mean, anybody in the Midwest basically will do this. America, if you're white, they usually do use the N-word sometimes. it's really sort of just redundant because the N word doesn't have any inherent meaning. It truly doesn't, as far as I can tell. They just use it whenever they get angry. I don't know. They're dumb, so they get angry, and then they blame somebody else. I don't know. And this kind of stems from being white. You know, I'm mostly white. But most, like, small-nosed white people, like people with small noses that aren't round, you know, like pointed noses, or maybe round, but the bridge is small, you know what I'm talking about, just these non-N-words, whatever they are, you know. I have a word for them now, too, by the way, but I don't use it. Anyway, whatever they are, they sort of are bred to blame people who look like the N-word. Basically just, you know, it's just a chimp blaming a gorilla, when the gorilla really hasn't done shit to them, but could. And that's not a good position to be in, even if you can't tell. Anyway, yeah, I get gaslit a lot for this viewpoint, but I keep it to myself. You know, a lot of Asian Americans have this viewpoint that these chimp people, instead of these gorilla people that they are, which they're not really, but they are in a way, just to identify who they are. I am too, by the way. These people are sort of, the Asian people are, so they're sort of right to blame these chimp people. But in European society, there's sort of a takeover, or more people of that chimp descent. So we don't have an easy time blaming them. They're also usually bigger, which makes it more difficult. But at the same time, we're usually a little bit stronger. I'm just going full into, I don't really care if you believe what I believe or know about. I don't know if it's a belief, but knowledge about this stuff. But we're usually a bit stronger because of the Neanderthal DNA that we have. I wouldn't say that we're dumber. I'd say that we didn't really want to acknowledge, a lot of us at least didn't really want to acknowledge facial differences. And we didn't really want to acknowledge this sort of almost slavery that the white population has put onto us, even though we're also white to them anyway. I don't think we really are anymore. And I can't say that I didn't have my own beliefs when we were, or at least when I was being driven mad and sent to be alone, or whatever they wouldn't want to say, for most of my 20s. But anyway, yeah, basically, I'm not the N-word. They are. And I don't agree with them. I think at this point, most of them are a little bit dumber than we are. And I've noticed that if I do Japanese math, for example, I'm not very dumb. But if I do European math, I'm very stupid. Basically. That's just one example. And that's because the way that the European mathematical systems that have been put in place are they're built for chimps. Algebra is not meant for gorillas, all right? And that's the thing about prodding a gorilla, is that it'll gorilla you, or whatever. You poke a gorilla and it doesn't get angry, and then it holds it in, and then it comes back later and kills you, okay? Or something like that. I don't really know. But yeah, and chimps just don't stop. So, if you see me shaking in fear right now, like anywhere in public, because I do shake in fear sometimes, it's because I'm surrounded by loud chimps who are just human beings, but at the same time, that's not all they are anymore. Anyway, this isn't going to be tolerated forever, I figure. I noticed that this sort of thing, like aiming guns at people who are like me and being very, very intolerant of Asian Americans, I noticed those things started, and my life suffered even more in some ways. So, yeah. More so than anything, a lot of people started calling me the N-word to my face, or in earshot. Anyway, in earshot just means in listening distance. Anyway. Basically, it's just a cowardly way to prod and poke you until you do something back, but on a broad scale and to an extent that isn't tolerable. I've noticed how easy it is for me to go into a Japanese restaurant, for example, and just talk to them, even though we speak a different language. They even know just a little bit of English, and I'm still able to communicate well enough that there's not much of a problem, or any problem at all, when I communicate with them. But if I walk into a store with a white who's a chimp, there's always some fucking issue. And that's because they believe I'm an N-word. And anyway, they just, I don't know. I don't know where this stems from, to be honest. I grew up with people like them. And it doesn't exist when you're a child, at least not until a certain age, this belief that people are N-words. I don't even really think black people aren't. I'm trying to say that black people aren't the N-word. But, it's just how it goes. Anyway, I never grew up even knowing about that word. Not until I was in school and I introduced the idea of slavery through history, reading about history. The slaves, how Lincoln freed the slaves, blah, blah, blah. By the way, I don't particularly like or dislike Abraham Lincoln. I thought he looked a little weird, but he got the job done for the black people. And then I learned from my friend Mike that I would have been enslaved too. And Mike looks a bit like me, I guess, to you. Or to somebody who's not an N-word, but yeah, so once I learned that too, I knew that, yes, my friends aren't coming back to help me, you know, but I knew that before anyway. Anyway, this is my personal channel. I can talk about whatever I want. I never bring this up. I never bring this up in public or anything, and I don't think I'm going to talk about it much. But you go to any Asian person, not any Asian person, but you go to like the Yakuza, for example, and you talk to them about this issue. And they're familiar with it. They might say they're not, but they are. And they might not say that they're not, but they are. And they know that, yes, these are niggers. We're not. They are. They use the N-word and they had slavery in America. It's very simple. And whatever I just explained in the last 10 minutes, they can do that in 30 seconds. And they're done, and they know, and that's it. And what I can say I learned about their culture versus American culture is that they don't trust chimps. They don't give them a chance. You know, they don't, but they would, and they do. But they don't trust them. Even I would say trust them a little bit more probably because I grew up trusting them because they were my brothers and my friends. Anyway. Anyway, though, I've come to see that I actually can't trust them. So, anyway, I don't know. Without the Asians, I wouldn't have come to that realization. Maybe I would have, but I wouldn't have had anywhere to go. Even now, the only kind of media that makes sense to me or whatever, is Asian movies, films, you know, things like that. I really can't understand much of what a chimp has to say because they're doing it behind everybody's back. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you could take Jason Statham, for example. He was just in a movie called The Beekeeper. I saw a preview for it, and it's just him getting back at niggers, as they would say. I don't really use the N-word. It's just him killing a bunch of N-words who wronged somebody, which he's either right or wrong to do. I call him a little bit crazy. I think maybe he should have just calmed down. And also, however wrong they were, I don't know. You shouldn't have glorified it. Probably, at least, right? But I haven't seen the movie, you know, so I don't know if it's right or wrong or whatever. I just don't agree with the chimp by telling me what's right or wrong. Because in another light, they might have been a little bit more driven crazy or right than you could expect. in the movie or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, that's about all I have to say for now about that. I've noticed that the best way to understand a chimpy white is to let one come up behind you. Just like Liam Neeson from the first Batman said to Batman, just come up behind them and stab them in the heart, that's what he said to him. This sneaky anti-ninja shit, that's the best word that I have for chimps, is sneaky. Very not up front, usually. And when they are up front, I have a lot of respect for them. Until they use the N-word. Anyway, that's about all I've got. See you later.